Hello everyone, my name is Jack Sorrell, and today we're going to be looking at a custom shell for the Nintendo Switch. We're going to find out if they really are worth it, and if they make our Switch look any better. I'll also show you how to install one, but now let's have a look. This shell was sent to me from Extreme Raid, but you can be sure that all of the opinions in this video are all my own. Opening up the box, we have the shell for the Switch console. We've got two included screwdrivers, one tri-wing and one Phillips head, as well as two more shells for both Joy-Con controllers, and also a bag of screws and matching buttons. Installing this shell won't be too hard. Let's start by unscrewing these 4 screws on the console itself. Then we'll move on to installing the Joy-Con shells. We'll have to remove these 2 screws by the USB Type-C port. Remove the SD card if you have one, then remove this screw here. You'll have to pull the kickstand off if you haven't already. And now the Switch casing should pop right off. I unscrewed all the screws on the rail by mistake, but as you can see, you only have to remove the middle screw on the rail. Then remove the screw on the Switch casing which holds in the game card flap. Then simply install the game card flap onto your brand new shell. The process is similar for the kickstand clip. Just unscrew it from the Switch casing, then screw it into your new shell. Next, unscrew the screw holding in the metal piece on the old kickstand. Then place this piece in the new kickstand, then screw it in. We're almost ready to install the shell onto your Switch, but first we have to install these 2 grates to stop dust getting inside. Simply unpeel the sticker and then stick them on, over the 2 holes. And once you've done all that, you can now install the shell onto your Switch. I recommend using the included screws with the kit, because I actually found them to be better than Nintendo screws, and they're all Phillips head. Once it's all screwed back on, clip in the kickstand, and admire the brand new shell on your Switch. I don't know about you, but I'd say this looked pretty epic. Starting with the right Joy-Con, remove all 4 screws from the back of the controller, and then gently open up the casing. Remove this screw, and then unclip the ribbon cable. Using your fingernail or a flathead screwdriver, flip the small latch on the ribbon cable up, and the cable will slide right out. Move this part of the Joy-Con sandwich to the side, then unclip this ribbon cable. Just so you know, this ribbon cable is actually reversed. Unscrew the 2 screws on the back of the analog stick, and try not to drop it, then the front casing of the Joy-Con should come off. Keep in mind the buttons might fall out, but don't worry, we're going to be installing the new replacement buttons, which match the colour of the shell. Also remove the shoulder button housing from the back casing. Then unclip the shoulder button's ribbon cable. Leaving the battery connected, remove the battery from the center casing. Firmly pop off the shoulder button, then unscrew the button itself. Now we can start installing it in our brand new shell. I'll start by placing the battery into its container. Next, place the shoulder button into its slot, and then screw it in. Grab 2 springs from the bag, and place them onto the 2 notches on the controller. Then line them up with the notches on the plastic button, and using a bit of pressure, press them in. The plastic button should then click into the housing. It can be a bit fiddly, but it's very clear what you have to do. Next, I'll connect the shoulder button ribbon cable to the ribbon cable slot on the circuit board. Just slide it in and then click it down. Make sure it's in all the way or the button may not work until it's properly seated. Now I'll sandwich all of this together so it's in the final position when we eventually go to screw it all down. Next, remove each button from the mold, and then we can proceed to install each one. This bit's also a bit fiddly. Take each button and put it into the correct slot, and then make sure the letter on the button faces up the correct way. The buttons can only go in at one angle, so it's hard to mess up. I'll put the rubber pads in place, then start installing the SL and SR buttons. Simply remove the 2 screws, pop out the buttons, remove the rubber pads, place the pads onto the new buttons, slide them in, and then screw the circuit board back in. Make sure to screw them in somewhat tightly, otherwise the buttons may not click properly. Definitely test them to make sure they click okay, and then we'll move on. Don't forget to connect the 2 ribbon cables of course. Slide them in and then click them down. Now I'll take this part of the assembly and press it down against the faceplate which has the buttons installed. Make sure the analog stick pokes through, and then test each button on the controller. Some of them won't click properly because the controller isn't fully assembled, but you should hear a slight click. Carefully screw in the analog stick and then put this thing in place. I'm just making these names up as I go. Place the Joy-Con release button into the slot, and then carefully sandwich the whole thing together. Make sure the release button works, and then screw in all 4 screws, and the Joy-Con sandwich should be complete. I'll tell you what, I think this looks incredible. You can see all of the circuit boards and buttons and stuff inside. I'm sure this would look great in all of the other colours, but I'm glad I went for red because that's my favourite colour. Installing the shell on the second Joy-Con is pretty much exactly the same, apart from a few small changes. So while you start working on Joy-Con number 2, I'll show you what you've got to look forward to, and here it is, the final product. I've installed the red transparent shell on the right Joy-Con, the Switch itself, and the left Joy-Con. And what can I say? I think it looks fantastic. Like I said before, you can see some of the internal components inside, such as the spinning fan, button assemblies, batteries, circuit boards, and a lot more stuff that I may or may not understand. I performed a quick test of all of the buttons, and all of them felt nice and worked as expected. So, is a custom shell like this the biggest upgrade you can make to your Switch? Well, if you ask me, I'd say yes, 100%. So I hope that this video helped you find out if a custom shell is right for you. You can find links to this shell from Extreme Rate in this video's description. Well, that's all for today. My name's Jack Sorrell, and I hope this video helped you out. And thank you to Extreme Rate for sending me this Nintendo Switch shell over to review.